I never imagined that the night before my daughter's wedding would take such an unexpected and painful turn. It's still hard to talk about, but I know this story needs to be told. I am Isabella, a woman who made a choice I regret every single day. A choice that tore apart not just my family, but also my sense of self. It was a moment of weakness, and even though nothing explicit happened, the emotional damage was done. It was more than enough to destroy everything that mattered to me. It all started on the night before my daughter's wedding. A night that was supposed to be filled with joy, last-minute details, and excitement for the future. I was at my daughter's home, helping her prepare for the big day. The air was buzzing with wedding energy. Flowers, dresses, and decorations surrounded us. My daughter, Emily, was ecstatic. I could see it in her glowing eyes as she talked about Benjamin, her soon-to-be husband. Benjamin had always been kind and respectful to me. We had a normal mother-in-law and son-in-law relationship, polite but not overly familiar. That night, though, things shifted in a way that caught me off guard. As the evening went on, Emily decided to go to bed early to get enough rest before her big day. Benjamin stayed up, making sure all the wedding details were in order, double-checking the guest list, and ironing out some last-minute kinks. I stayed behind to help with whatever I could, but to be honest, I was exhausted and ready to call it a night myself. Isabella, do you mind staying for a bit longer? I could really use some help with these last-minute changes. Benjamin asked me, his tone soft yet unusually tense. I hesitated for a moment, but then I nodded. Of course, Benjamin. Anything for Emily. It felt natural, just another task before I headed home. We sat together in the living room, going over details and lists, both trying to make sure everything would be perfect for Emily. But as the night stretched on, the atmosphere began to shift. Benjamin seemed anxious, almost restless, and I could feel something was off. He wasn't the calm and collected man I had always known him to be. There was an odd tension in the air, like something was bubbling under the surface, but I didn't want to acknowledge it at first. You seem tense, I finally said, trying to lighten the mood with a gentle smile. Big day nerves? Benjamin sighed, leaning back in his chair, running his fingers through his hair. I guess so, he replied, but there was something deeper in his voice. It's just a lot, you know? Marriage is such a big step, and I want everything to be perfect for Emily. I smiled again, feeling a wave of maternal warmth. It will be. You two are perfect for each other. He looked at me then, and for the first time, I noticed a vulnerability in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. It was unsettling, and for a brief second, I felt a flicker of something I shouldn't have. I quickly brushed it aside, reminding myself that this was Benjamin, my future son-in-law, and nothing more. But the way he was looking at me, it wasn't the usual polite look of a son-in-law. We sat in silence for a few moments, the air thick with unspoken words. I shifted uncomfortably in my seat, suddenly feeling like I needed to leave. I should probably get going. You've got everything under control here, I said, standing up and gathering my things. But before I could take another step, Benjamin stood too, moving toward me with an intensity that made my heart race for all the wrong reasons. Isabella, wait, he said softly, almost pleadingly. I froze, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know why I stopped. Maybe it was the tone of his voice, the way he said my name, or maybe I just wanted to pretend that everything was still normal. But deep down, I knew it wasn't. I turned around slowly, meeting his gaze. What is it, Benjamin? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He hesitated for a moment, and then, without warning, he closed the space between us. There was no kiss, no embrace, nothing physical. But the way he looked at me in that moment, it was as if the room suddenly became too small, too quiet, and too dangerous. I've always admired you, Isabella, he began, his voice barely a whisper. You're so strong, beautiful. I've never met anyone like you. My stomach dropped. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Not the night before my daughter's wedding. I tried to laugh it off, tried to push away the growing tension. Benjamin, you're just nervous. You're getting married tomorrow. But he cut me off. No, it's not just nerves. He paused, taking a deep breath. I've been feeling this way for a while now, and I didn't know how to say it. But I can't ignore it anymore. I stared at him, completely stunned. What was he saying? Why was he saying it now? My mind was racing, trying to find the right words, the right response, but all I could feel was a sinking pit in my stomach. I shook my head, trying to snap out of it, trying to remind myself of the reality we were in. Benjamin, stop, I said, my voice shaking. This is wrong. You love Emily. He stepped closer, and I could feel the weight of his words pressing down on me. I do love her, but I can't help how I feel about you, Isabella. I've tried to fight it, but I can't anymore. I know it's wrong, but what? I asked, my voice barely a whisper. I didn't want to hear the answer, but I couldn't stop myself from asking. But I need you to know how I feel. At that moment, everything in me wanted to scream, to tell him to stop, to walk away. But I didn't. Instead, I stood there, frozen, trapped between my role as a mother and the dangerous pull of the moment. I wasn't proud of what happened next, but I also knew that nothing could ever be the same after that night. I wish I had walked out of that room right then. I should have left, gone straight to my car and driven home to forget this ever happened. But instead, I stood there, letting his words linger in the space between us. Benjamin's confession caught me so off guard that I didn't know how to react. For a moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of guilt. Guilt for even being in this situation, guilt for not shutting it down immediately, and guilt for the flicker of emotions I tried to bury deep inside. My mind was racing, but I was paralyzed. This man, my daughter's fiancé, was standing in front of me, pouring his heart out in a way that was so confusing, so utterly wrong. And yet, I couldn't move. Benjamin's voice broke the silence. Isabella, I'm not asking you to feel the same way, he said softly. I just needed you to know the truth. I've been holding it in for so long, and I couldn't go through with tomorrow without being honest. I shook my head, finally finding my voice. But why now? Why tonight? You're marrying Emily tomorrow, and she loves you. You love her, Benjamin. I do love her, he insisted, but there was hesitation in his voice. But I don't know. There's something about you. You're different. You've always been so kind, so understanding, and I think that's why Stop, I interrupted, my voice firmer this time. This is wrong, Benjamin. You know that. I'm Emily's mother. She adores you, and you're about to start a life together. Whatever feelings you think you have, they need to end. Now. He looked down, a flicker of shame crossing his face. For a moment, I thought maybe that would be the end of it. Maybe he would realize the mistake he was making, and we could pretend this never happened. But then he spoke again. I don't want to lose you, he said, his voice almost breaking. I know we can't be together, but I can't just act like this doesn't exist. I need you in my life, Isabella. Those words hit me hard. It wasn't just a confession of attraction. It was deeper than that. He wasn't asking for anything physical, but the emotional connection he was implying, it was almost worse. Benjamin was asking for something far more dangerous than a fleeting moment of passion. He was asking for a secret bond, something unspoken that would linger in every family gathering, every holiday, every time we looked each other in the eye. And that was something I could never allow. I can't do this, I said firmly. You can't do this. We have to stop now before this goes any further. For Emily's sake, for your sake, for all of us. I turned away, ready to walk out the door, but before I could take a step, Benjamin grabbed my arm gently, stopping me in my tracks. His touch wasn't aggressive, but it was enough to make me freeze. Isabella, please don't leave like this, he pleaded, his eyes filled with desperation. I need to know that we're okay, that I haven't ruined everything. I pulled my arm away, my heart pounding. I needed to leave, needed to get away from this situation before it spiraled even further. But the way he was looking at me, it was like he was on the edge of a breakdown, and I didn't know what to do. I couldn't just abandon him, but I couldn't stay either. "Benjamin, we're not okay," I said quietly, forcing myself to keep it together. "This is a line that should have never been crossed, and we both know it. Tomorrow you're going to marry my daughter, and you're going to be a husband to her. That's what matters now." I turned again, this time managing to make it to the door. But before I could leave, Benjamin's voice stopped me one last time. "Isabella, please, don't hate me for this. I don't know what I was thinking. I couldn't keep it in anymore." I paused, my hand on the doorknob. Hate him? No, I didn't hate him. I was disappointed, hurt, confused, but not filled with hatred. He was young, caught up in emotions he didn't know how to handle. But I was older, wiser, and I should have known better than to let it get this far. "I don't hate you, Benjamin," I said without turning around. "But this has to end. Tomorrow, everything goes back to normal. Do you understand?" There was a long silence before he finally answered, his voice barely a whisper. "I understand." And with that, I walked out the door, my heart heavy with the weight of what had just happened. As I drove home, the guilt gnawed at me. I couldn't believe I had let things get this far, that I had allowed Benjamin to confess his feelings to me in the first place. But what bothered me even more was the secret I now carried. A secret that could destroy not only my relationship with my daughter, but also her future with Benjamin. I couldn't tell Emily. She was so in love with him, so excited about the wedding, and I couldn't bear to break her heart the night before her big day. But keeping this to myself felt like a betrayal. I didn't know what to do, and the closer I got to home, the more I realized I had no idea how to face tomorrow. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing on the nightstand. It was Emily, calling to check in on me before the wedding. My stomach churned as I picked up the phone, her cheerful voice filling the room. "Mom, are you ready for today? I can't believe it's finally happening," she exclaimed, her excitement palpable through the phone. I forced a smile, even though she couldn't see it. "Of course, sweetheart, I'm so excited for you," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. As she continued talking about the plans for the day, the dress, the flowers, I couldn't help but feel like I was suffocating under the weight of the secret I was holding. How could I face her today, knowing what had happened the night before? Knowing that Benjamin had feelings for me that went far beyond what was appropriate? But there was no turning back now. The wedding was happening, and I had to be there. I had to support my daughter, even if it meant burying the truth deep inside me and pretending that everything was fine. As I got dressed and prepared to head to the venue, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling in my chest. This wasn't over. Even though I had stopped it from going any further, the damage was done, and I had no idea what the future held for any of us. The wedding went on as planned, every moment seemingly perfect. Emily looked radiant, the epitome of a glowing bride, while Benjamin stood beside her, playing the part of the doting groom flawlessly. From the outside, everything was picturesque, but inside, I was in turmoil. Every glance between Benjamin and me felt like a reminder of the secret that could destroy it all. I could feel his eyes on me during the ceremony, brief, stolen looks that no one else would notice. But I did. Every time it happened, my heart raced, not out of excitement, but out of dread. I kept my composure, smiling through it, knowing this day wasn't about me or the mistake we had almost made. This day was about Emily, my beautiful daughter. She was starting her new life with a man she believed adored her, a man who had confessed his feelings to her mother the night before. As they shared their first dance, I tried to find solace in the fact that I had stopped things before they went too far. But it didn't change the fact that the tension between Benjamin and me still lingered beneath the surface, threatening to unravel everything if we weren't careful. I couldn't let it slip. For Emily's sake, this had to remain a secret. Forever, after the reception, as I watched them leave for their honeymoon, my heart ached. I had done what I believed was right by ending it, but the weight of the unspoken truth still hung over me like a dark cloud. Benjamin would always be a part of our lives now. Family gatherings, holidays, milestones, he would always be there. And I would have to live with the secret, knowing that one wrong move, one slip, could destroy everything. But that was the price I had to pay to protect my daughter's happiness. As I stood there, watching the newlyweds drive away, I made a silent vow. This secret would never see the light of day. I would carry it with me, no matter how heavy it became. Because some things were better left unsaid. Some mistakes had to stay buried. And with that, I walked away, trying to convince myself that this was the best decision. For all of us.